Some call me Steve, Dad, husband, or friend. Others might call me boss, coach, or mentor. Today you can call me the Leadership Hacker. Thanks for listening in, I really appreciate it. My job as the Leadership Hacker is to hack into the minds, experiences, habits and learning of great leaders, C-suite executives, authors and development experts so that I can assist you developing your understanding and awareness of leadership. I'm Steve Rush and I'm your host today. I'm the author of Leadership Cake, I'm a transformation consultant and leadership coach and can't wait to start sharing all things leadership with you. Joining me on the show today is Andrew Selley. He's over 30 years of business experience, more than 20 of them at board level. He is currently the CEO of a 10-figure turnover food company and now sharing his secrets of how leaders of underperforming businesses can explode their profits with his new book, Ignite Your Business. But before we get a chance to speak with Andrew, it's the Leadership Hacking News. Big brands have figured out how to gain attention and make themselves stand out from others. So what can we learn from them to grow our own personal brand? Interesting new research by Duke University found big brands are so powerful at compelling commitment they can influence happiness in marriages and partnerships. And when you have to live with your partner's brand choices, it can even reduce happiness if you don't share the same passion. Brand credibility is also important. A study about perceptions of value is really intriguing. Research at the University of Bonn discovered when people thought wine was expensive, they rated it significantly better than when they thought the price was cheap or lower. We can learn from this too. When people perceive your value, they will be more likely to remember you and to select you for all kinds of opportunities. From the research, I've distilled 3 top ways which we can leverage the corporate approach. Number 1, be gravitational. First, create emotional connections based on rapport. One of the key skills for the future of work will be the ability for us to build relationships more deeply, more quickly, often through virtual means. Positivity is a magnet. We want to be around others who create that positive vibe. Listen to others, tune in and invest in learning about them. Building your brand is ironically less about you and more about others. Demonstrate humility and avoid arrogance. Be gravitational and draw people to you and genuinely support others. Research finds people select companies and brands based on how much they can also contribute to communities and who demonstrate that social conscience. Personal branding is like this too. It's not all about you. It's often about how you enter into relationships with others and how you can help care for them. Number 2, be brave. Sometimes it can be really hard for us to put ourselves out there, but effectiveness in personal branding requires you to speak up, to take a stand, to move forward and be confident. The most successful brands are visible and memorable because they do put themselves out there. For people, the phrase, fake it until you make it, is quite apt here. You may not have all of the things figured out yet. You may not have all of the self-assurity you need to keep that momentum going. Worry less about perfection and focus on making progress. The best opportunities come from taking those steps into areas that we don't really know about. Staying open to opportunities and possibilities and that learning new can really be quite alluring. Jump into the project for which you're mostly but not fully prepared for. And in doing so, you can develop your own skills along the way. And consider saying to yourself, step up, step out and step forward. Number 3, be substantive. Building your personal brand must always include substance and reliability. Be sure you've got something to offer in terms of your skills and your talents. Seek to learn and develop yourself constantly for sure. Your best personal brand will be built based on the value you add to others and how you bring it to your best and your team. We've all worked with people who may talk a good game but actually don't deliver. These people tend to be the ones who float from job to job or company to company because those around them figure them out. Successful brands deliver value time after time consistently. And your personal brand is like this as well. Be the person who rolls their sleeves up and follows through. Others can always count on to deliver that quality work, the one who maintains their relationships over time. And when you do, you'll benefit from a really strong network and solid lasting connections that you'll be able to rely on for years. So in summary, your success will be based on the relationships and meaningful interactions you have with others, and there is no formula for personal branding, but it's merely a mindset to help appreciate others, invest in relationships and be your personal best. And this approach will ultimately elevate your brand and get you noticed. That's been the Leadership Hacking News. If you have any stories, insights or information from anywhere in the world, please get in touch with us. Our special guest on today's show is Andrew Selley. He's a proven and successful high-impact business leader. He's the CEO of Bidcorp UK, a multi-billion-pound company. And after 30 years in lots of different sectors and businesses, 20 years operating at board level, has now written the book, Ignite Your Business. Andrew, welcome to the Leadership Hacker podcast.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
It's my pleasure. Really excited to get into the whole principle of igniting your business. Stories, of course, that you've shared in your book, but experience of the last 30 years, which I'm looking to hack into from now. So perhaps before we get into that, you can just give us a little bit of the backstory as to how you've arrived doing what you're doing.
I started my career, sort of, as you say, 30 years ago. Doesn't seem that long to me, but 30 years ago at Coca-Cola in the UK. It was on the bottling side of the business, not the brand owner side. So we were the bottler and distributor for Coke. It was a very fast-growing business. Just as I joined, they switched over from bottling and selling Pepsi to bottling and selling Coke, which was interesting, both from an organisation and cultural perspective, but also because it meant that overnight the business was 4 times bigger than it was previously. So I think there was just a lot of opportunity there, and I worked in a lot of different departments. And I sort of moved from sort of graduate trainee through to sales director in 10 years, and left after 12 years to move across to Bidcorp. And I think, unusually, people would say I've been there for over 20 years, which I think is probably unusual in this day and age. But I think the reason is I keep getting opportunities there that challenge me and excite me and reward me. So, over the time that I've been there, I've run the food logistics business, doing all the daily food supplies for Burger King, KFC, Pizza Hut, and all those big brands. I've run the military supply chain business where we did all the worldwide food supply for the armed forces. So we had to set up and operate depots in Afghanistan and Iraq and Sierra Leone, etc. I established our business in the Middle East and the Baltics and Spain. And then for the last 7 years, I've been running our sort of core hospitality business in the UK, where we supply all types of food, both packaged and fresh, and beers, wines and spirits, and non-food and everything to the hospitality industry. So we turn over about £2 billion. We've got about 6,000 employees, and we've got about 60,000 customers in the hospitality sector in the UK. So obviously from that perspective, obviously it's been quite a challenging year, but I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
I can imagine. Yeah, love to get into it. You are what I would call the archetype of entrepreneurship. Often people have this perception that in order to become a great leader, you've got to bounce between businesses, and you are a perfect example of taking all of those natural occurring opportunities that are presented it in the environment you're in, and are now leading a really large and successful business too.
Yeah, I think I'm fortunate insofar as the business Bidcorp it's a global business, but its ethos is entirely decentralized. So I think we operate in sort of 36 different countries around the world, and each country just operates as its own individual business, and sort of authority and autonomy is decentralized down, and that's the culture that we then take within our business. So we push down sort of responsibility and encourage, as you say, entrepreneurship of the people who work for us, because that's what makes, I think, the business and the culture more interesting and exciting, and you get a different type of person there who wants that responsibility and that challenge.
Indeed. Now, I would imagine that given the environment you're in and given the organisation you lead, the last 18 months or so has been a particularly challenging one. How has that changed the focus of what you're doing with Bidcorp?
I think it hasn't necessarily changed the focus. It's certainly changed a lot of what we do. as I say, as a supplier to hospitality, during the last 12 months of COVID, our business has really gone on a bit of a roller coaster. So when we had the first lockdown, our business declined by 70%. That's 70 in a week, which is obviously a bit of a challenge. We've had certain bits of the business which have kept going. So we do supply food, etc., to hospitals and care homes and schools and prisons. But obviously all of the supply to restaurants, hotels, nightclubs, theme parks, travel and leisure outlets, all stopped as well. So I think as the sort of the leader of the business, your focus doesn't necessarily change insofar as your focus is always on strategy development and execution, managing and developing and caring for the team, looking for how you're going to invest in the business going forwards, dealing with big customers, big suppliers, etc. So that hasn't necessarily changed, but clearly our our strategy and approach and what we've actually executed over the last 12 months has changed quite a lot.
I can well imagine. We're going to get into actually how your Ignite model has helped you in your business, because you actually use it as a case study in your book, but we'll come back to that in a moment.
Yeah.
What would be really interesting is just to get a sense of, how did the book come about? What was the kind of inspiration for you?
I think everybody says people have a book in them. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've spent a lot of my time trying to develop myself over the years. I've always had a keen interest, as I know that you have as well, in terms of reading, business books, broadening my knowledge, trying to learn new ideas and new initiatives. And I've, to be honest, probably found that 40-50% of the books that I've read were just totally dry, and I probably didn't even finish them. They were quite theoretical. It was almost like doing a business studies degree instead of reading an educational and motivational book. And I suppose, with a little bit of arrogance, I thought maybe I could do better or do different, or make a book that was easier to read and more practical in terms of its application, something that you could read and do something with straight away, rather than read and try and work out what they were talking about. And also a book that you could just dip into. You can read it as a whole thing, or you could just dip into a specific area where you need some help or you've got an issue. So it's probably 3 years ago I started writing it and mapping it out, and started off really enthusiastic and bashed out the skeleton, and then just added to it over the next couple of years. But then when lockdown did arrive, clearly there was a lot less commuting, because we were working from home a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I used to do quite a lot of international travel within the sort of the Bidcorp group, which obviously disappeared. So I thought, I can either watch a load of Netflix box sets, or I can actually just get this book finished. So I decided to get it finished and get it published and get it out there.
Excellent. And congratulations, by the way. I've read the book, and one of the things that struck me when I read it is how absolutely practical it is. So you've got a sense of a story that you tell through Taranova. Interestingly, is Taranova a real business? Is that a kind of a guise of another business maybe you've worked alongside?
No, it's a made up name.
Oh, interesting.
I think if you've ever read Ken Blanchard, The 1 Minute Manager,
yeah.
I really liked that series of books that he did, because they were sort of an allegorical sort of approach to business. So it's told through a story, and I sort of found that no matter how many times you try to find an example in business for the point you were making, it wasn't always exactly backing up the point you were making. So I thought I'd actually write my own story alongside it and sort of integrate the points I was trying to make into that story, which, as you know, sort of shows the right way and the wrong way of doing the elements that are covered in each chapter.
And what I particularly liked about it is you kind of take people on a little bit of a story, then you give them the sense check, and you get them to do some reflection on their own business, and here's some tools as well. So it's a real practical playbook all the way through each of the steps of the model. So let's just spin through what Ignite and the Ignite model means, and maybe we can get into some of those sections as we get through it.
Yeah, certainly. Just tell me where you want to delve in any deeper. I mean, I do like an acronym. So yes, Ignite
exactly.
is an acronym, and the I stands for Inspirational Vision, and I think there's 2 points to that. Firstly, you need to know where you're going. If you're leading a business or even just leading a team, you need to have a vision of what it is you're trying to do and what your purpose is, etc. But I think the bit that people often miss out is the inspirational bit.
I agree.
It's got to be something that engages people's emotions and makes them want to contribute and makes them want to do that extra minute or extra mile and make that extra effort. So having something that engages people's emotions rather than just something that they intellectually understand, I think is important. So that's the whole bit around inspirational vision and values of what the business stands for.
What I've found in having worked with lots of different clients and businesses where they spend quite a little bit of time on the vision, they miss that inspirational bit, which is dead easy to say, but to create the emotional connection that helps people move from one place to another is a bit more challenging than people perceive. What's been your experience of that kind of shift between just having a vision and making it inspirational?
Yeah, I think the point that I do make in the book is, the worst thing that can happen is that the leadership team go off into a little huddle and come back to the business and say, hey, here's the vision, and they stick a few posters up around the business and that's it. You really have to live and breathe the vision, because the more you can involve your team or the business in creating that, the better, I think. So when we created our values, for example, at Bidfood, we had about 50 different listening groups across the business, speaking to all people in all parts of the country at all levels to really understand what they thought was the essence of working at Bidfood and what the true values were. And then we were able to distill that and basically play it back to people. So they were all felt involved in that. And therefore you're giving them something that they've already been engaged in, rather than just trying to sell them something that you've thought of. But I do think it's about, people underestimate how much you have to keep reinforcing the vision, because clearly people come and go within the business. So, somebody who might have started a couple of months ago has never heard the vision. So if you're not constantly repeating it and engaging people and explaining it, then it gradually dilutes its effectiveness. But also, you think everyone lives and breathes it like you do, but they don't.
Yeah.
Most people, are working because they want to have a job, get paid, do well for their family, get on with other things in life, and they're not thinking and living and breathing the business necessarily like you are every day. So you have to find a way of constantly refreshing it and explaining it and engaging with people on the vision and on the values. And that's something that we would do all the time within Bidfood. Is anytime we put out a piece of communication, we always try and relate it to a value or the vision or something, and just reference that back, so people can always sort of make that link back to, oh yes, I understand what this is talking about, because it's this part of the vision or it's that value or whatever. But you really do just have to keep banging on about it, I'm afraid, for want of a better phrase, because you're the evangelist, you're the one who's meant to be having that passion and injecting that passion in the business. And if you don't, then no one else is.
That's right. And of course, they look to leadership to make sure that that's congruent with all those messages. So those constant points or nudges to activity that you're completing as a business and how it links back to that vision is incredibly powerful.
Absolutely. And I think, we again talk about that in the book, and that's quite often where things break down, because if your actions don't back up your words, then people will not listen to your words. So if you say, we value people within this business, but then there's somebody who completely disregards the people who work for them, but because they're doing a good job, you just sort of ignore it, and you don't want to lose them as a performer, so you ignore their deficiencies in the way that they value and deal with people. People instantly spot that, as you say, there's no congruency between what you're saying and what you're doing. So it's really important that your actions back up your vision and your values. Otherwise, it's pointless.
And it's no surprise the G in your model is galvanize into action.
Indeed. So galvanize into action. You've got to walk the talk, as they say. And I think the other really important thing is you've got to just get going. I think too many people spend too much time planning and tweaking and trying to get to what they think is the perfect model of what they're trying to do. But that as soon as you engage with an employee or a customer or a supplier, that model's going to change anyway. So you might as well just get going, get on with it, and then tweak it as you go. But really about, as you say, galvanizing and motivating people at all levels and all different cultures, etc., within the business. So that's obviously the key part, because if you've got the vision but nobody's doing anything, then you're not going anywhere.
And there's a nice build to end, which is nurture. So you kind of set your vision, you've got people galvanizing to action, and then it's around nurturing that talent and that activity forward, right?
Yeah, and nurturing the team effectively, because unless you are a small business, you're going to have people working for you, and you're going to have people through whom you need to deliver results. And the only way you can deliver the results that you want is by investing your time into nurturing and caring for your team, making sure they've got the right skills, making sure they're happy and motivated, making sure they understand the vision and the journey that you're on and the role that they play within that, and making sure that they understand what you expect of them in terms of the way they manage their teams or engage with their customers or whatever. So, certainly as in my role as CEO, then obviously a lot of my time is just spent around the team, because obviously I'm not delivering those goods to the customer. Ultimately we've got thousands of drivers and warehouse guys who are doing that work. So it's all about how you communicate and nurture the team to flow down through the business.
Indeed. Now, what was really interesting when I looked at I, which is increase everything, I looked at it for a moment and I read through your chapter in the book. And as I finished reading it, I recognized that unconsciously, this has been what I've been doing through transformation. But you've taken that kind of whole high level of focus, activity and energy and applied it in a BAU sense to get people to think differently about what they're doing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think increase everything. It's probably the most tenuous one in the acronym, to be honest. It's about the whole sort of the 10x approach, the type of approach that the likes of Grant Cardone, etc., would sort of support, insofar as the rule that he would say is in any situation you've got 4 options. You can retreat, in which case you're going to go backwards. You can do nothing, in which case you're going to go backwards because other people will be doing something. You can take what would be the normal amount of action in that situation, which may have some result, or you can take massive action. And generally speaking, if you're taking massive action in those situations, you're going to be outperforming, the competition. And the key for me is that very often we launch something or we launch a project, and I think certainly my tendency is I always look at the things that aren't quite working well. So you go, okay, those 2 things are working well over there, but these 2 things here aren't working as well as we hoped. And you sort of focus your attention on the things that aren't working as well. And you sort of increase maybe your investment or your focus on those areas to improve them. But you should also not forget, where you've got areas that are working better than you thought, you've got to be increasing your focus on those areas as well, because you've got some momentum, you've got some traction. So actually you could double down on that and get even further ahead. But I think generally speaking, there's 2 things happen. Either we focus on the weak areas and then we're not maximizing the strong areas, or we go, well, actually these 2 areas are working, that's great, these 2 areas aren't, so we'll get rid of them. And very often people sort of stop investment in projects too soon when they probably could have made them work if they'd have increased the investment and the focus on them, or they aren't investing enough in the areas that are doing well. So it's a mixture. So depending which way your natural balance is, whether you're always focusing on the good things or always focusing on the things that aren't working, the message is you should really be focusing on both.
Yeah.
All the time. At some point you need to cut your losses and go, okay, I've really tried with this and it isn't working, and so cut it, but not before you've given it a full effort and a full focus.
I also noticed that within this part of the book there's a bit about mindset here as well, about how people will routinely do what they've just always done if you don't really shift the energy and focus forward.
Yes, And I think, and that's not a criticism, that's a fact of
It's
life, I think.
behavioural. I mean, it's
Yeah,
naturally we entrench to what we're comfortable doing, don't we?
absolutely, absolutely. And when I took over in my current role, the business had been performing reasonably well. They'd been growing at 3 to 5% in terms of bottom line for the last 3 or 5 years, and therefore, when I was challenging people to say, what do you think we can achieve in the next 5 years, people would go, well, maybe 20%,
Yeah.
25%, thinking that would be a little bit of a stretch. So I just said, no, we're gonna triple the profit. So that's effectively what we set out to do, was increase by 300% over the next 5 years. Unfortunately, the last year was the one that's just gone. But we were on track to, we wouldn't quite triple, but we were a long way north of 25%. So I think it's about,
There's a massive lesson there, isn't there?
absolutely,
In so much as, had you not had that approach from the outset, then it wouldn't have allowed you to ride the storm as well,
no,
without that in the bag, so to speak.
no. But I also think you have to do it credibly. So I didn't just go, hey, we're going to go from 3% to 300%. You had to lay out some milestones, which we talk about in the communication chapter. You had to lay out some credible milestones that say, actually, if we do this and if we do that and if we do the other, then you can paint a path as to how you can get there. Not that it's easy, but at least it's feasible. And if people apply themselves and stretch themselves.
Yeah. And your communication chapter you call tell, which is the T in your model.
Yeah.
And there's a theme actually across all of the different layers of your business that is really consistent around that. Never stop communicating. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think it's just the one thing that you can never overdo, is communication, obviously. We have a challenge in our business. We're multi-site, sort of 25 plus sites around the country, multicultural in terms of the different locations of those sites, and different job roles within that, everything from cleaner through to warehouse, through to driver, through to telesales, to sales professionals, to national sales professionals, accountants, IT, marketing, digital. We've got the whole spectrum of employees and ages and cultures, and you have to find a way to communicate your message to all of those people in a way that suits them. And I think that's the key in communication, is you have to communicate in a way that suits the recipient, not in a way that suits you as the deliverer. So I think the point I make, for example, is we have teams who work in the freezer in our warehouses, so they're working at like minus 20 degrees every day, and it doesn't really work if you say, hey, come into the office and sit down for half an hour, because they're frankly not used to being that warm, and they usually nod off in about 5 minutes. And if you're doing it during their day, they're actually looking at you going, well, actually, you're taking up my time when I should be working, and I know I'm going to have to work twice as hard when I get back into the warehouse to finish the job. So it's the wrong environment. It's creating the wrong situation, because they're not really listening. They're thinking about what they've got to do when they've finished, etc. And so you've really got to think about, in that instance, I've got to communicate to this team, actually, I'm just going to do it down in the warehouse, maybe not in the freezer because that's a bit cold, but down in the warehouse in an environment that they're used to. I'm going to bring them in early and pay them for their time, so that they're not feeling that I'm impinging on their time. I'm actually creating space, and they know it's important. And maybe we'll lay on some coffee and bacon sandwiches or something. Again, it's just those little things completely then change the environment that those people are listening to what you're saying in. So regardless of the message, you've completely changed the way that they're listening to you. They're listening to you with a way that says, okay, it must be important. They brought me in, they're paying me. They're not impinging on my time. Oh, got a cup of coffee and a bacon sandwich, fantastic. That whole attitude is different in the way they're receiving the message. And then obviously it's going to be very different for your digital team in the office, or your sales team out on the road. You've got to find the right way to communicate, again, to the right teams in the right place. So again, it's just to me something you can never overdo.
And particularly in a pandemic, of course, when you're in a crisis, my experience tells me that more communication, regular communication, is exactly what people need, not less. But again, ironically, in many businesses and in many teams, the leaders under duress and pressure forget the importance of that regular communication and indeed listening, of course, which is part of that communication process, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And we started probably from like the week after lockdown. So after the week after our business had declined by 70%, we started doing daily communication. So, which is quite a challenge, to be honest. Daily emails, memos, whatever that either people can receive or they can be briefed out in their workplace. Just to say to people, this is a situation. Trying to be honest. This is what's happened with the volume. Clearly, this is what's happening with whatever government support is coming in and what we're going to take advantage of. This is what we're doing. This is to keep you all safe in the workplace, because obviously we've still had, as I say, sort of 30% of the business going through, so we've still got to operate all the depots. So this is what we're doing from a health and safety point of view, and just that regular daily communication, which we probably carried on for like 4 months, and then maybe reduced it to like twice a week or weekly, etc. As things changed, was really important, I think, in making sure that people understood what was happening.
In the absence of that communication, what typically happens is folk make up their own stories, and then they're either right or wrong. And usually they're wrong because they haven't got all the insight and information. And that can be really quite toxic to an organization, can't it?
Absolutely. I mean, as they say, people will fill a vacuum.
Yeah.
So if you're not putting the information out there, as you say, people will assume their own.
The last E is embed. And it makes loads of sense that you would want to embed all of these things. But tell us what that really means to you.
I think as a leader, you've got to have almost like a pipeline of initiatives that are coming through the business. And clearly, you're generally focusing on one at a time. But as you've communicated your new initiative or new strategy or new category that you're working on or whatever, and you've been through the process of explaining and communicating, getting everybody on board, getting the team involved, communicating to everybody how it fits into the strategy, etc. At some point, you've got to embed that into the business and have that as business as usual. Otherwise, you can't release your time to bring through the next initiative. So I think very often that's where you get sort of CEO or MD or whatever overload, where they're trying to spin all these plates,
right?
Because they haven't got the way of actually saying, okay, this is now part of what we do. Let it go. And hopefully, if you've developed your team and communicated effectively and whatever, then you can embed that into the business as usual. So maybe you should be like 70% working on the current initiative, and then maybe 30% on the next one that you bring through. And then as you embed that current initiative into business as usual, you can switch the 30% on the second one into 70%, and then start to bring another new one through. But
like that,
I do believe you've always got to have that. I think the chapter I put at the end, which didn't fit into the acronym, was never stop.
Never stop, yeah.
Because you just can't stop. Because if you stop, you're going to go backwards. So you've always got to have that sort of pipeline or conveyor belt of ideas and strategies and whatever. Because fact of life is not everything's going to work as well. So
yeah.
You can't bet the house on one initiative and find out it doesn't work. You've got to have a pipeline coming through, and then that means you're going to have to embed them, which means integrate them into the business and then optimize the performance as you go on.
And then go again and again and again.
Yeah.
And which is why you've been around in the industry you've been in for so long and had such great experience in doing so.
Let's hope so.
So, given that you were pulling together your book over the course of the last year, and whilst it's called Ignite Your Business, it could be Ignite Yourself, Ignite Your Team, Ignite Your Department. It's a model that you can take across lots of different teams and situations. But how did that play out for you during the pandemic? Was there a particular moment when you thought, gosh, that's definitely a bit of focus for G, or that's definitely a bit more of I?
Yes, I think the really pleasing thing for us during the pandemic was that the things that I talked about in terms of the way that the values had been created with involvement from everyone in the business. Yeah, the pandemic showed that they were real and they were the way that people conducted themselves rather than just a poster on the wall. So we only have three and they rhyme, so that's really helpful. So it's care, share, and dare. So care is take pride in what you do no matter what you do. Share is work together to achieve great results, and dare is take brave steps to deliver exceptional results. So care obviously came to the fore during the pandemic because we needed to make sure that we were caring both for the teams that were still in the business and were working hard and under stressful conditions, but also at the peak we probably had 60% of the workforce on furlough and at home, which brings its own challenges from mental health and well-being perspective. I think share and dare really came through in the way that we realigned our business. So we actually went with our major competitor and worked on a sort of food relief program for the government. So there was about 500,000 people who were stuck at home who couldn't physically get out of the house because they weren't allowed to because they were clinically vulnerable and they didn't have family support to help them in terms of shopping, etc. And so with our major competitor, we set up a sort of nationwide home delivery service to 500,000 people in 7 days and got that product procured because it wasn't the sort of the normal product that we would sell. We were procuring, packing and distributing that product within 7 days. And to do that with the people who were normally, toe to toe in the streets when we were in the restaurants was amazing. But it was actually done because we both had that vision of here's a group of people who need our help. Let's come together and sort this out rather than thinking about, the old competitive elements. And I think it was described as the biggest food relief effort since World War II.
Yeah.
So it was clearly quite a big thing. But really, again, that's the whole share and dare, doing something really quite different and working together with our competitor to deliver something that was important. But again, really showed to me how having that shared vision, even in a wider team that now involves your competitors, still works because it actually went like a dream, because we were all just focused on the end goal.
It's a fantastic achievement and congratulations. I think it is an amazing feat to have had to pull that off in such a short space of time. And I just wonder, as you were sharing that, has that reduced that competitive edge? Is there more synergies that exist as a result of that now?
No.
So it's kind of gloves back on then. It's back into the corners.
There's sort of only sort of two main national players in the marketplace. So there's lots of local players. So on a local basis, we compete with a lot more companies. But for the big national accounts, we tend to just compete with one. So it's business as usual. But I think clearly you've got a higher level of respect and understanding, but at the end of the day, we're now back focused on our own businesses and our own shareholders. So
brilliant. So this part of the show, Andrew, we get to turn that leadership lens on you, and I'm getting an opportunity to hack into your experience of leading teams and businesses. So the first place I'd like to go is to find out what your top 3 leadership hacks might be.
Okay. I think the first one is really important for leadership and for life, I would say, is that you really do need to know yourself. You need to know who you are and what you stand for. What are your red lines in terms of what you will do and won't do, etc. And I think you really need to be comfortable with yourself and like yourself, because you can't really create a culture and create a business or even be in a relationship until you really understand who you are and you're happy and comfortable in your skin. And the more that you do, then the easier it is to, I think, adapt to situations because you know where you stand around different things. So, and I think that's really important. And I think we're very often influenced by other people and what other people think and what other people say and what strong characters may say and what people who we respect and admire may say. But you've always got to sort of center back into your true north and your compass to say, does that align with what I want to do and what I stand for? So
True.
I think that's really important. I think what I've always found really good and one of the best, I've said I read some business books that were boring. One of the best books I've ever read was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and it's a great book when something just sticks with you forever. And the thing that's always stuck with me from that book was around the sort of the time planning quadrant, whereby you've got the 2 axes, one of which is not important up to important, and one of which is urgent or not urgent up to urgent. And it's really about how you categorize your to-do list into those 4 quadrants. So, if it's not important and not urgent, then actually you shouldn't really be doing it. Delete it or delegate it. If it's urgent but not important, it's basically a time waster that's snuck onto your agenda. And again, you need to get rid of it or delegate it. Obviously, if it's urgent and important, you just need to get on with it. But the area that gets neglected is the important but not urgent things. And those are the things that tend to be neglected if you're wasting your time on those other areas. So that's the area where things like vision and values and team development and strategy are going to sit in that. They're really important, but they're not urgent. So you really need to manage your time to make sure you've got time to spend on those, not urgent, but very important things. So that would be my second point, I would say. And I think again, the other one to me is a life attitude. Is always talk to everybody and always find out everything. So you'll find out more talking to the guys around the back of the warehouse or in the smoking shelter or the cleaner or the telesales operator than you will by speaking to the leaders. You'll find out what's really happening rather than what people want you to hear. And I think always talk to everybody about everything, even if you're asking 2 different people the same question. If you're getting different answers, then you'll get an inkling that things aren't in alignment. So, and I think it's really important as well for leaders to be seen to be, communicating and engaging with everybody in the business.
Yeah, I love that. Super stuff. Great advice. Thank you. So the next part of the show, we call it Hack to Attack. So this is typically where something in either your life or work hasn't worked out, but as a result, you now are using it as a positive. What would be your hack to attack?
I think without overdoing the attacks, my hack to attack would be to attack every situation. And I do think obviously that what hasn't worked out for us in the last year has been the pandemic. And in any situation where you're faced with a challenge, some people are going to hesitate because that I think when there's a real shock to the system, there's a lot of people will hesitate and evaluate and try and understand all of the implications of the situation. And I think if you attack in that situation, you just get on and do something, then that's going to be your opportunity. So, like I say, we had a real hit to the business and the volume crashed, but we sort of proactively got that contract with our competitor by pushing for it. And then off the back of that, we've developed, a direct to consumer offering as well as just as a business to business offering. So, we've sort of adapted that skill set to actually say, well, actually, is there a demand for, catering quality, restaurant quality products direct to the consumer? Clearly, our pack sizes are bigger than normal, etc. But for a monthly shop or for family events or for whatever, there's an opportunity there. So we've taken, by sort of attacking the situation, we've developed another opportunity. So I think my hack would be attack when others are hesitating, and then you're always going to be at an advantage, I think.
Brilliant. And you only find out by doing, of course.
Indeed.
Yeah. So the last bit of our show with you today is to get to do a bit of time travel, and you get to bump into Andrew at 21, give him some advice. What would it be?
I think it would be back to the point that I made, because if I look back to myself at 21, then I probably did take too much account of what other people were thinking and saying, which to a certain extent I think is natural, in terms of, the less confident you are in yourself, the more you may adapt your behavior to others. But my message to myself would be, again, know yourself, understand yourself, know what you stand for, and don't be afraid to stand up for what you stand for. And I think that will put you in a fantastic position for the rest of your life as well as the rest of your career.
Great advice. Andrew, listen, it's been a really pleasure speaking with you.
No, thank you.
I thoroughly enjoyed reading your book. I'm delighted that we're connected through this great medium, through podcasting. And if our folks listening to this wanted to find out how they can get a copy of Ignite Your Business and indeed connect with you, what's the best place for us to send them?
Yeah, well, if they're in Europe, if they go to www.igniteyourbusiness.biz, you can order the book there. If you're elsewhere in the world, the US or overseas, then it's probably best to go on Amazon and order it. And obviously it's available on Kindle on Amazon as well.
And you're also active on LinkedIn, so we'll make sure that we connect you through that medium, and all of those links will be in our show notes as well.
Yes, absolutely. And if people want to contact me again, they can go through the website or email me at andrew@igniteyourbusiness.biz. Because I do have some very limited availability for mentoring or coaching of some leaders, if that's of interest to anybody. So
brilliant.
Please get in touch.
We'd love to make that connection happen. Once again, thanks, Andrew, for being on the Leadership Hacker podcast. It's been a real pleasure.
No, thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I genuinely want to say a heartfelt thanks for taking time out of your day to listen in too. We do this in the service of helping others and spreading the word of leadership. Without you listening in, there would be no show. So please subscribe now if you haven't done so already. Share this podcast with your communities and network and help us develop a community and a tribe of leadership hackers. And finally, if you'd like me to work with your senior team, your leadership community, keynote an event, or you would like to sponsor an episode, please connect with us via our social media. And you can do that by following and liking our pages on Twitter and Facebook. Our handle there is @LeadershipHacker. Instagram, you can find us there at @the_leadership_hacker. And at YouTube, we're just Leadership Hacker. So that's me signing off. I'm Steve Rush, and I've been the Leadership Hacker.